Mic test, 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 test.
Recording in progress.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, everybody, for your patience and understanding. We're working on a couple of technical issues. I like to say we're working on that, but those issues are resolved. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And I want to welcome everybody here in the chamber today, as well as folks joining us on Zoom. Thank you to all our attendees. Again, thank you again and again for your patience. That was a delay there, but we'll go ahead and start with the roll call. We'll go to our city clerk, Suzanne Guzetta.
Councilmember Chua? Here. Councilmember Dominguez? Councilmember Fran?
Present.
Vice Mayor Montano?
And the Vice Mayor is joining us tonight through the Zoom software we're using. It is a hybrid meeting. The Vice Mayor, we'll go to her here. Her audio is connecting, and we'll wait for her to state her presence. She's with us virtually, and we appreciate her. And her audio is connecting, but we'll circle back around once that connects to get her voice for the roll call, but she'll join us shortly.
Mayor Tran.
And I'm here. Thank you very much. Moving on here to the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please stand. Mr. Montemayor, can you lead us tonight? To the flag. United States. Thank you very much, Commissioner Montemayor. And next is the invocation. Tonight's invocation is presented by our Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano. Her audio is still connecting, but perhaps she can share that invocation with us at the end of the meeting before we adjourn. Next up is public forum, folks. Thanks for being here with us tonight. We have a slew of public hearings, as you can see on the agenda. Folks joining us on a Zoom, our residents, community members, stakeholders, as you know, looking at the agenda, we do have a number of public hearings. So tonight's public comments will be 1 minute per person per item. And I thank you for being here with us as we work through this very high quality agenda. Public forum, but if you're here for an item not on tonight's agenda, come on up, Commissioner Montemayor.
Hello, everybody. I don't have much in mind. Thank you for letting me lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Did I miss the Christmas lighting? I wasn't here, or it was raining. And greetings to all. In some religious worship places, we'll have Simbang Gabi coming. And greetings to all. Have a happy holidays or Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Montemayor. And we do have speaker cards here as well. Thank you, folks, for filling this out. We do have Renuka. Are you here? Please come on up. Yes, I have your speaker card. Thank you for filling it out. It helps out our city clerk with the minutes. Oh, welcome. Yes.
Hi, city council members. I'm a resident of Milpitas. My house is within a community on which borders Able, Maryland, and Weller Lane. It's right across the library. The community, there are two communities, Images and Reflections. I'm a board member. In August, we had two incidents, and for both the incidents, the police were called to our community, and it was in the middle of the night. In one of those incidents, a homeless person was arrested. This person broke into the vehicles, and he also defecated around the property in front of the residents' front doors. Then we had three incidents where we needed to call the police in September. So this has increased recently. So need some assistance over here in addressing this problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will not tolerate any type of crime of that nature. Our police chief is here. If you haven't already, please connect with him, and he'll take the notes, and we will enforce the law. Absolutely. I did see you circulated something too. I can't talk very long; it's not on the agenda, but I did see you circulated something. We're going to address that 100% as well.
I also shared some pictures. I mean, the library right in front of the library, around the library.
Take care of it. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for being here. And I have my email on the city website. Please follow up as well. But I think the chief's going to get your information. I'll follow up with you. Thank you. Your chief's right there, by the way. Yeah, right there. We're here now. Yeah. You're welcome. And we take it very seriously. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. I did get our speaker card for an agenda item for later. So thank you for filling it out. Public forum, looking around the chamber. I see no further requests for the public forum. I'll go to the virtual chamber through our Zoom. Thank you, folks, for being here with us. Please raise your virtual hand if you'd like to participate in the public forum. First up, we have Jackie Romero.
Good evening, Mayor Rich Tran, council members. I just wanted to take a moment and thank the Arts Commission and all of you for the in-kind services donation that you did towards for the Night on Broadway fundraising event that we did for the theater group, Center Stage Performing Arts. It was because of your
Jackie, we're working on getting your microphone set up.
Can you hear me okay?
Not sure if it's on your end or ours.
Hello? Can you hear me okay now? Hello? How about now? Can you hear me now? Hello?
Okay, we're still here. Perhaps we'll circle back around to you. Let's go to Linda Hutchins Knowles. Are you there, Linda?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? I wanted to let you know there's a very bad echo that I think it's the mayor, and I was able to hear the previous speaker just fine. I think there's some technical issues going on. Could you confirm that you can hear me? I think there are technical issues.
Okay, we're just getting the technical difficulties, the attention that it needs. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and call a recess, folks. We're gonna address technical difficulties. We're gonna call a recess, 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll be back. Folks at home tuning in, we got some connectivity, technical issues that we're gonna resolve very shortly. It's a recess, folks, 5 or 10 minutes. Thanks for joining us tonight.
I'm going to step away now to write my comment, so I will look for a text here when we're close to our agenda item, period. Thanks for informing us, Crystal, exclamation mark.
Mic test one. Mic test two.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I'll go ahead and call this meeting back to order. We have just got back from our recess due to some technical difficulties, but from what I'm hearing, those issues are resolved. So I want to thank folks that are here in the chamber tonight again for your patience and understanding. We have folks on the Zoom And let's pick up where we left off. Thank you, everybody on our Zoom for your patience as well. Back to the public forum. Remember, folks, 1 minute tonight for all comments, all items. Public forum, 1 minute with the virtual raised hand. Jackie Romero.
Thank you so much, Mayor Tran. On behalf of Milpitas Children's Theater Alliance and the Triple Threat Theater Foundation, we would like to thank you, Mayor Tran, and City Council for the 2020 grant program provided through the Arts Commission. And a special thank you to the commissioners with the Arts Commission for approving our application. We also want to acknowledge Renee, Tegan, and their team for all the assistance with in-kind services provided that assisted in making a Night on Broadway dinner show fundraiser a success. Also, thank you, Councilmember Anthony Fan and Mayor-elect Carmen Montano for sponsoring a table. It was amazing having you at the show and all the past signatories as well. We hope that we see you all next year. Thank you, Councilmember Karina Dominguez and Mayor Tran for your service.
Thank you very much. All right, public forum continues. I did see a second virtual raised hand earlier. If you're still with us, would love to recognize you. If not, I will take public comments toward the end if needed. Just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak. Okay, that's it with the public forum. Thank you very much, folks, joining us on Zoom. Moving on to announcements and future agenda items. We'll go to our city manager, Steve McCarris.
Thank you, Mayor Tran and members of the council. I have no announcements this evening.
Thank you very much, Steve. Just a quick announcement. I just want to give kudos to our city staff, Recreation, Community Services Department, Public Works, everybody that contributed to our annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony. For folks that were in attendance, Penny Alexa, I know you're there. It was a magical night, and staff did an incredible job adjusting due to the inclement weather. And thankfully, the rain did subside of sorts. And so a lot of folks had a lot of great time. Thank you, Milpitas Community Band, Milpitas Police and Fire, and all the folks who worked diligently to ensure our Milpitas family had a great time. So that's my announcement. And we'll go to my colleagues for any announcements or future agenda items. Next up, we have Councilmember Evelyn Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I have two. And the first one is, what is the impact and how do we compensate for the massive layoffs that the Bay Area is experiencing right now? We have thousands of people losing jobs from Facebook, Amazon, Google, Home Depot, and 50% cut from Twitter. So I'd like to have this on the agenda on the first week of January to see the impact, potential impact, and how do we compensate for it. The second one is, in lieu of that, piggybacking on the first one, how can we help our residents journey through this massive layoffs? How do we reach out to our residents and show them like our programs, like rental relief, utility relief, connect them to the employers. So some plan that we need, we have to show what we can do for our residents that are impacted. And the third one, lastly, if it's okay with the rest of the council, I would like to dedicate tonight's council meeting to Commissioner Voltaire. His birthday is on this Saturday, December 10th, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get that reflected in the minutes. Tonight's city council meeting. We honor our commissioner, longtime Milpitas family, Voltaire Montemayor. This meeting's for you. Thank you, Councilmember Chua. Very thoughtful. If I could make an amendment to proposals 1 and 2 future agenda items, the first and second one, can we move that to the Economic Development and Trade Commission, and then have those 2 issues elevated to the council eventually? Okay. Okay, great. Okay, Councilmember Chua said it's okay. And that way we can involve our commissioners.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. And, perhaps, December or January, that commission may need a new city council liaison. That might be good for you as well with your business
Thank you, Mayor.
experience. Great, you're welcome. Any further requests for announcements or future agenda items? Okay, thanks. Moving on to the announcement of conflict of interest and campaign contributions. We go to our city attorney, Michael Mutalapasi.
Thank you, Mayor. Asking Mayor and each council member whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda.
Councilmember Chua.
None.
Councilmember Dominguez.
None.
Councilmember Fan.
None.
Vice Mayor Montano, are you here with us digitally, virtually? Okay. And myself is a none, Michael.
Well, let the record reflect there are no reported conflicts. I also ask Mayor Tran and members of the Milpitas City Council to please disclose any campaign contributions of $100 or more received within the last 12 months from any of the parties entering into contracts with the city on tonight's agenda, or contributions received from the development project applicant for development projects on tonight's agenda.
Councilmember Chua.
None.
Councilmember Dominguez. Councilmember Fan.
None.
And myself is a none. Or we'll check with the vice mayor here. She's with us virtually. Vice Mayor Montano is with us on Zoom. I see her name here on the screen. The microphone. Oh, wait a minute. Here's a virtual raised hand. Vice Mayor Montano, hello. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Vice Mayor Montano is still with us. Just getting this microphone thing here addressed. Okay. We can always go back and ask her as we move along. That way we can proceed. Okay. Our city attorney, can we proceed here with the question on campaign contributions? Myself is a no.
Thank you, Mayor and council members.
Thank you very much. Next up is the reading of the City Council Code of Conduct. Be respectful and courteous, model civility, avoid surprises, praise publicly and criticize privately, focus on the issue, not the person, refrain from using electronic device while on the council dais. Disclose conflicts of interest and affiliations related to agenda items. Separate governing from campaigning. The council speaks with one voice after making policy on issues. Respect the line between policy and administration. Council will hold one another accountable to comply with this code of conduct. Moving on here to the approval of agenda. I would like to postpone item number 18 to the first regular city council meeting of January 2023. I've been receiving a lot of public stakeholder requests for more discussion. And so I'd like to make a motion to postpone item number 18 to the first regular city council meeting of January to allow for all community members to comment and have a more thorough conversation, a discussion and dialogue. And I think that time can be afforded over the next holiday season. Any further requests for the approval of agenda? Go to Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I would like to ask a question on C12 and a comment, please.
Yeah, we could take a question now for C12 before we move on to the consent calendar. Sure, now's not a bad time.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I would like to call on Mr. Alex Andrade, and I'm a acting housing director.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. Alex Andrade here.
Thank you, Director Andrade. I would like to request to have a review of the process, our lottery process for this affordable housing. Anything, review of the current process and any recommendations on how to improve it. That's my request based on this item. That's all I
Thank you.
have, Mayor. Thank
Okay,
you.
great, yeah.
Thank you, Director Andrade.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. Okay, great. Yeah, perhaps you two can set up a meeting to further discuss the details and report back on your question about the process. Is that okay, Councilmember Joe?
Yes, I think it has to be agendized so everybody, all the residents know, because we're using something that I think we've used for a while and it can be improved.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Chua.
okay, great. All right. Okay. Any further requests? We're on the approval of agenda. Okay, I'll go ahead and move to approve the agenda, postponing item number 18 to the first regular city council meeting of next calendar year. Need a second. We got a second from Councilmember Chua. We'll go to the vote. All in favor, Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano, are you there with us virtually? I know we're working on your microphone. Okay, we'll get back to you. Myself as an aye, the agenda is approved. Moving on to consent calendar. I see no changes in the consent calendar. Need a second. I'll move to approve the consent calendar. Need a second. We got a second from Councilmember Chua. We'll go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Myself is an aye. The consent calendar is approved. Moving forward here to public hearings. Item number 17, let's conduct a public hearing and adopt ordinance number 65.152 for adoption of reference the 2022 California Building Codes and Amendments. Per the agenda, let's go to Bill Todd with our building department. Hey, Bill, are you there?
I believe I am now.
Hey, yes.
evening.
How you doing? Good.
Doing okay. Yeah, little interesting evening here. So here we have item 17, public hearing ordinance, California Building Code adoption with amendments. And you will see by the next slide, this is a typical triennial code adoption sequence. Back in 2020 was the beginning of this code cycle we're in now. We're coming up on the statewide effective date of 1/1/2023. And next slide. So the building code adoption is done every 3 years to align with new bills signed into law, streamlining of technical codes and local amendments, which we do have in here related to fire and seismic and life safety, which is what we brought forward from our current code basically, and addresses local climatic, geological, or topographical conditions specific to our area. And these are effective Jan 1, 2023. Next slide. So this is our recommendation to open the public hearing, hear testimony, move to close the public hearing, waive the second reading, adopt ordinance 65.152, amending chapters 3, 3.54, 5, 6, 7, 10, 14, 150, and 170 of the Title II of the Milpitas Municipal Code, adopted by reference to 2022 California Building Code, 2022 California Residential Code, 2021 International Property Maintenance Code, 2022 California Mechanical Code, 2022 California Electric Code, 2022 California Plumbing Code, 2021 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, 2022 California Existing Building Code, and 2022 California Historical Building Code with amendments. And that is end of the presentation.
Thank you very much. Our city is really doing our part with all the changes at the state level, and great work by your department. I'll go ahead. I'll open up the public hearing. If I hear no objections, the public hearing is now open. It's 1 minute public comment during this hearing. Mr. Montemayor, come on up. It's your birthday week. Yeah, come on up.
Yeah, maybe two words. Realigning from what we have, confirming, and with amendments, then it will be good for us. Safety is there. Right? Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, any further comment here during this public hearing inside the chambers tonight at our beautiful city hall, isn't it? Okay, I see no further requests. Let's go to the folks in the Zoom in our Milpitas cloud. Jared Johnson, welcome to our public hearing.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, welcome.
Okay, thank you. I hear that item 18 is moving, but this is also about the Cal Green Building Code. I am a Bay Area resident and senior policy manager for Octera, and on behalf of my organization, I do want to thank you for taking up REACH codes, and thank you for voting to pass the Milpitas Climate Action Plan. Is a powerful investment in ensuring a just and livable world for current members of our community as well as future generations. However, it is concerning that certain corporations may be lobbying Milpitas to weaken its climate action plan by not going forward and improving the 2022 Cal Green Buildings Standard Code with amendments for energy. And I urge you to reject the request to support gas infrastructure or for any exemptions for distributed energy resources, DER. DER exemptions allow for the continued expansion of new gas pipelines in Milpitas, and scrapping the REACH code altogether is completely incompatible with your commitment to future generations.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, thank you. For more discussion, please reach out to the city council. Next up here on the Zoom, Bruce Nagel.
Thank you, and thank you for your peppy introduction to things. You got to have a bunch of punch to things. Anyway, the point I want to make feeds on what Jared Johnson was talking about. The DERs, that the distributed energy resources that have been listed, are ones that unfortunately run like a gas power plant and run 24/7. So it is very important to make sure that they do not enter into the code, because you will weaken your ability to resist the harms of natural gas, which is a real problem. And well, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for being here with us tonight. Item number 17, public hearing. Next up, we have Alex Wagenfeld.
Hello. Thank you for this. My name is Alex Wagenfeld. I'm 16 years old. I live in San Mateo County, and I'm here to kind of second what Bruce and Jared Johnson have just said here. I'm speaking on behalf of my generation. I like coming here and speaking about how we need to pass these swift and impactful climate policies. And this is how change happens, one policy at a time. So I really appreciate the city council taking up this issue and being in support of this. But everything matters. And if swift action is not taken, we will not be reaching our climate goals. And so swift action of not including gas in this is necessary. My generation our future is in your hands, and I really do hope you show your support for phasing out gas infrastructure with your actions tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. Don't stop what you're doing. Any further virtual raised hands from folks on the Zoom for item number 17? It's the public hearing. Thanks for being here with us tonight. Next up, we have Linda Hutchins-Knowles. Linda.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Tran and council members. I'm Linda Hutchins-Knowles, and I am the co-founder of Mothers Out Front Silicon Valley, a movement of mothers and allies who advocate for a livable climate for all children. On behalf of our 2,000 South Bay supporters, several of whom live in Milpitas, we urge you to resist any pressure to water down your REACH code. Transitioning our buildings off gas is one of the most important climate actions a city can take, and it's climate malpractice to allow new buildings to use new fossil gas infrastructure. I want to call your attention to the fact that Bloom Energy has a clear pattern of trying to stop cities at the last minute from adopting ordinances that would prohibit new facilities using their gas-powered fuel cells. If you cave to their pressure, you'll be prioritizing corporate profits over climate safety. Fuel cells are not needed. There are other solutions for backup power, and in fact, they do not provide backup power. They provide continuous 24/7 power that runs off fossil gas. Just say no to greenwashing and protect our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, any further virtual raised hands for item number 17? You're in the right place at the right time tonight. Seeing no further virtual raised hands, I'll go ahead and move to close the public hearing if I hear no objections. I hear no objections. The public hearing is now closed. We'll bring the discussion back up to the dais. I have no further comment, and I'll go ahead and move to approve item number 17 as stated on the agenda. I'll go to my council. Councilmember Chua.
I second.
We have a second from Councilmember Chua. Any further comments?
None.
Okay. We have a motion from myself to approve with a second from Councilmember Chua. Let's go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Actually, Mayor, since you're adopting an ordinance, I believe we ought to read the title of the ordinance, and you may want to amend your motion to waive entire reading.
Yeah, right. To approve the item as stated on the agenda. But okay, I'll go ahead and start from the top, or I'll amend my motion to approve item number 17, which includes waiving the second reading and adopting the ordinance as stated. Okay, that's an amendment, and go to a second. We have a second from Councilmember Chua. Go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
That's an aye. Vice Mayor Montano, I believe you're with us.
Yes, I am. Aye.
Yes, she's been glad we got that technical thing resolved. I know you've been with us from the beginning. Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Montano. And myself as an aye, the motion is approved. Item number 17 has concluded. Item number 18 has been postponed. If I may share again, item number 19 under public hearing, let's conduct a public hearing, waive the second reading and adopt ordinance number 133.26, adopting by reference with certain local amendments, the 2022 edition of the California Fire Code. And let's go to the Deputy Fire Chief from the Fire Marshal's Office, Arthur Belton. Hey, Arthur.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm here to present item 19, Arthur Belton, Deputy Chief with the Milpitas Fire Department and Fire Marshal. Here for the public hearing on ordinance for the California. Ordinance number 113.26 was introduced on the first reading during the council meeting on October 18th. This ordinance repeals and replaces the current chapter 300 of Title V of the Milpitas Municipal Code, adopting by reference the 2022 California Fire Code, along with local specific amendments. The City Council didn't request any changes to the ordinance, and staff was directed to notice for a public hearing for tonight's meeting. The ordinance is ready for adoption. Next slide. City of Milpitas is a regulatory agency. There are three basic legs to the California Fire Code. This involves permit issuance, inspection, and enforcement. Provisions under the California Fire Code are statutory and provide for the minimum fire life safety and protection for all facilities, including operations within and the occupants that occupy these buildings and facilities. The purpose of the ordinance and adoption is for insurance of public safety. Next slide. Recommendations. Following the city attorney reading aloud the title of the ordinance, waive the second reading beyond the title. Open the public hearing and move to close following any comments. Adopt the ordinance number 113.26 enacted as chapter 300, title 5 of the Milpitas Municipal Code. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Deputy Fire Chief Belton. Now, let's go ahead and open up this public hearing. I'm going to go ahead and open it up if I hear no objections. I hear no objections. The public hearing is now open for item number 19. Mr. Montemayor, would you like to comment? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm getting familiar with the waiving of the second reading now. I believe, yeah, if it's not needed, then we'll just go for the what it's now adopting. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for the comment. Anybody else in the chamber here for item number 19? It's the public hearing, public hearings. Okay, let's go to the chamber in the sky. Folks on Zoom, thanks for joining us. I see all the names of our attendees. I'm sure you see the names too. It's a great crowd. Any virtual raised hands for item number 19? No, seeing no virtual raised hands. Okay, I'll go ahead and move to close the public hearing. If I hear no objections, the public hearing is now closed. We'll bring the discussion back up here to the dais. I have no comment, but to say great work to our fire marshal and all the folks there on the first floor, City Hall. Yes. Okay, any further comments from my colleagues? I'll just go ahead and go to the city attorney. If I see no requests from my colleagues, go to the city attorney, Michael Matalapasi.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm on the wrong page. Sorry, one sec.
We'll go to our deputy fire chief, Arthur Belton. Are there any other comments on the agenda item? I know, maybe you could share with the community, some of these things are driven by the state government. I know you spoke about it during your presentation, but looks like we're good to go, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I like that.
This follows the same timeline as the building code that.
Yeah, right.
Mayor and council members, you'll be voting today on an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Milpitas repealing and replacing Chapter 300 of Title 5 of the Milpitas Municipal Code and adopting by reference the 2022 edition of the California Fire Code with specified local amendments.
Thank you very much, our city attorney, Michael Matalapasi. And that was excellent reading aloud of the title. And we'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the ordinance as stated on the agenda. Need a second? We got a second from Council Member Chua. We took the public hearing, opened and closed it. The city attorney read aloud the title. There's a motion from myself and Council Member Chua. All in favor, Council Member Chua.
Aye.
Council Member Dominguez.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
And myself is an aye. The motion is carried. Item number 19 is approved and concluded. Thank you very much. Our Deputy Fire Chief, Arthur Belton.
Good evening.
All right. Yes. Item number 20, moving on here, conduct a public hearing and consider adopting an urgency ordinance, amending section 13, special uses of chapter 10, zoning, of title 11 of the Milpitas Municipal Code relating to accessory dwelling units, commonly known as ADUs, and junior accessory dwelling units, JADUs. I don't know. I feel like we've never said that term here before. Junior ADUs. And we'll go to our planning director, Ned Thomas. Take us away, Ned.
Good evening, Mayor Tran and members of the council. I'm Ned Thomas, your planning director. It's a pleasure to be with you again tonight. I have with me senior planner Michael Fasati and also our zoning consultant Holly Pearson, who have assisted me in preparing this zoning ordinance amendment. We're here to present, as you mentioned, an amendment to the city's local ordinance for accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, and this is to ensure that our local regulations are consistent with recent changes to state ADU law that were made in the most recent legislative session. And as you are familiar, over the past few years, it seems like every year the legislature is making minor changes to ADU law, and this year's law includes a provision that our local ordinance needs to be updated or amended before January 1st, 2023 to ensure consistency. And if we're not able to do that, then we run the risk of having our local ordinance declared null and void. So in order to avoid that circumstance, we have two items before tonight. So as you can see here, we'll have one presentation and one public hearing, but the council will be asked to consider two separate actions on two ordinances. The first one is an urgency ordinance, which will be for adoption. Both this ordinance and the regular one are consistent with the ADU state law. They're virtually identical. However, the urgency ordinance is needed because it goes into effect immediately upon adoption. So it will go, if it's adopted, it'll go into effect tonight, and it will be in effect on January 1st, 2023, when the new state law goes into effect. Now, it is an urgency ordinance, so it will sunset after it's written to sunset after 6 months or on the effective date of the regular ordinance. And the regular ordinance is the second item that will be before you tonight. As you just went through the other ordinances preceded this one tonight, there is a process there. We go through the first reading and the introduction, and then we have it already agendized at the next council meeting for the second reading and adoption. So it will be adopted on December 20th, 2022. It will then go into effect on January 20th, 2023. And then it will become the permanent amendment to the ordinance. But in the interim, since there was that little gap between the 1st of January and 20th, we needed the urgency ordinance to cover us during that time so that our local Milpitas ADU regulations remain intact. And well, the next couple of slides, I'll give you a little bit of background about the state legislation. If we go to the next slide, please. And then I have a couple of slides just to explain to you. It's kind of a mixed bag of relatively minor amendments to the ADU ordinance. But again, we want to remain consistent with state ADU law. So this was back in September. The legislature approved and the governor signed both Assembly Bill 2221 and Senate Bill 897, again, pertaining to both ADUs and JADUs. State law requires consistency between our local ordinances and state laws. I've mentioned a couple of times, and that has to be done by January 1st, 2023. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview. We're amending as you mentioned, certain sections of the zoning ordinance. In this case, we have a subsection that's specific to accessory dwelling units. It's under special uses in Chapter 10, which is zoning. And this will ensure minor edits as well as some organizational changes to both streamline the approval process and to clarify our local ordinances consistent with state law. Next slide, please. So as I looked over the changes that were being made, and we had advice from legal counsel as well, the primary change is really regarding height. And this slide covers, I've got 3 other slides as well, but and the change is not big. It's for a detached ADU, it goes from 16 feet to 18 feet. And there's some reasons inherent in that, but that change is only applicable to ADUs that are within a half-mile walking distance of a major transit stop. And so the ordinance also includes some definitions for what does it mean, high quality transit stop and so forth. Now, there's also a provision that there's an additional 2 feet if the roof pitch needs to match the primary unit. I think you can see inherent in this is that the idea of the legislature, we're down to the nitty gritty now, and we're seeking to address certain issues that have popped up as applicants have sought to build ADUs and have run into certain minor issues. And so the state legislature is seeking to remedy that through these relatively small changes. And there's one other one that increases the maximum height up for an attached ADU. So this is one that's attached directly to the building, but it can exceed 2 stories. So again, these are changes for both. You can see one's for applies to a detached ADU and another for an attached ADU. Next slide, please. We've also had some changes in setbacks. You can see here that we needed to address a typographical error that was in our current ordinance, and we want to establish clarify the 20-foot front yard setback, which is consistent with the setback for other buildings in the residential zoning districts. However, the state law addresses this in that if someone proposes a front yard ADU that is 800 square feet and it encroaches into that 20-foot setback, state ADU law now requires us to relax that setback, not completely eliminate, but so relax. It might relax it to 18 feet. It might relax it to 16 feet or 15 feet in order to accommodate at least an 800 square foot ADU. So that there's a little bit of flexibility in there. And then there was another provision regarding a demolition permit if the ADU is going to be located in a garage, that is review is done concurrently. Again, I read that as the legislature addressing maybe an issue that came up, not necessarily in Milpitas, but another community where there was some delay in issuing a permit for an ADU, and there was an issue around the timing of the demolition permit. So this change addresses that circumstance. Next slide, please. There were some other changes that to state, again, these are all consistent with state law, that were around the legalization of existing ADUs. Now in Milpitas, we haven't had this problem as much because we have our safe ADU legalization program. So this is not a stretch for us in any sense of the word to make this change to our ordinance. But again, we're doing it for consistency. And there's some other rules around the legalization of existing ADUs and JADUs as well. For example, the third bullet, if there's something on the property with the primary structure that is, it doesn't completely conform to a zoning condition or a building code violation, then we need to look at the ADU separately and not require that every other issue on the property be addressed. Again, this is a part of the streamlining of the approval process for an ADU. Next slide, please. Slides disappeared. The next slide had to do with other changes that are more related to the, we're on slide 8. It's a blue slide. Had to do more with changes around how the building code applies to an ADU. So changes in occupancy rating, as you can see in the first bullet point, as well as if you're adding an ADU, it's not going to trigger a requirement for fire sprinklers throughout the entire structure, primary structure, as well as the ADU. And the third one, that you don't have to modify the primary dwelling if there's some height or setback issues. Sometimes that occurs when you have an older building that might not meet the current setback. And again, I read into this that some communities are probably using some of these, we'll call them ancillary issues, to make it difficult to build ADUs. So again, under that larger umbrella of streamlining the process for ADU approval, the legislature is slowly peeling away any of those issues that might have kept someone from building an ADU. And the last one, the fourth bullet here, I think is really important. This is something that we already do, but if the city were to receive an ADU application and we're not able to approve it, the legislation and now our local ordinance will require that the city provide a full detailed set of written comments on anything that's deficient, and then we have to make suggestions of how that can be remedied. So this is something that we already do, but now it's going to be made specific and explicit in our ordinance. Next slide, please. So as with any ordinance, there are a couple of findings that are included in the zoning ordinance. You can see here it has to be consistent with the general plan and it won't adversely affect public health, safety, and welfare. The proposed ordinance amendment meets both of these findings. Next slide, please. We also have a CEQA finding here. The CEQA determination, there's a specific CEQA exemption for any regulation related to ADUs. And this was enacted a few years ago. So that applies in this case as well. Next slide, please. I also wanted to mention the Planning Commission reviewed this at their regular meeting on November 9th. They voted unanimously to recommend that the council approve both the urgency ordinance and the regular ordinance, as I described in my first slide. And the next slide, please. So I have two recommendations. The first one is to conduct the public hearing, and then once you close the hearing, to adopt the urgency ordinance tonight, so it will go into effect immediately. And this cites the two sections of government code which were amended by the recent state legislation. And then the second recommendation on the next slide is for the regular ordinance. Oh, if you could go to, yeah, we have urgency, and then there should be go to the next slide. Yeah. Oh, the next slide is missing, but I have it here in front of me. That will be for the regular ordinance, it will be the same public hearing, but then you will ask the city attorney to read aloud the regular ordinance and then to waive the first reading of the title ordinance and introduce it for adoption at a future meeting in accordance with the findings and the CEQA exemption. And with that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, Michael Fasati and Holly Pearson are both here to help answer any questions you may have as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, our Director of Planning, Ned Thomas, and we recognize Michael and Holly as well. Certainly great work by the planning department and the planning team to really roll with the punches and all the policy coming out of Sacramento. So hence the word urgency. We'll go ahead and conduct a public hearing. I'll go ahead and move to open up the public hearing if I hear no objections. The public hearing is now open. Item number 20. Come on up, Mr. Montemayor.
Twister and a mind twister. Yeah, main line like special uses. Title is Title 11, Chapter 10. Well, as long as there's no surprises with the applicants, timing, no litigation that will come up. Yeah, it's like, can I compare this to sports games? Like suddenly there's a referees changing rules, umpire. So yeah, the interference, the charging, the blocking. So no surprises, and there should be no litigation. Then it should be okay. Because sometimes we abuse as applicants. No, I'm offending. Thank you. No, I think we overdo sometimes. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think there will be good stuff moving forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Montemayor. And I see no further requests for comment during this public hearing here at City Hall. Let's go to the Chamber in the Sky. Once again, happy to see folks attending virtually from the comfort of their home or wherever they are in Milpitas. Really appreciate it when residents tune in and we see you. And if you have any virtual raised hands to comment during this public hearing, I will be happy to call upon you. Okay, I see no virtual raised hands. That's it for the public hearing. I'll go ahead and move to close the public hearing if I hear no objections. I hear no objections. The public hearing is now closed. We'll bring the discussion here back up to the dais. I have no comment but to say great work from our planners as always. And we'll go to my colleagues for any type of comments, but I'll go ahead and move to adopt this urgency ordinance as stated on the agenda. Oh, okay, I see you there. I'll go ahead and move. I do see you. You're next. I'll go ahead and move to approve. Pardon me. I'll go ahead and move to adopt an urgency ordinance. That motion is on the floor now. It will go to the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions. So the new state mandates of increasing the height is pretty high from what it was before. Before it was 12 feet, now it's 18 and maybe 25. But what I do like about it's within half a mile from the transportation stop. So I guess my question is, when it mentions a transportation stop, where does it really stop and where does it begin? Is it at the BART or is it at the, I'm speaking about in Milpitas. Is the stop at the BART or is it at near the whole transit area that includes all the homes there?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I believe, Holly, you may need to help me with the language on this. I believe the ordinance and the legislation are written so that it's within a quarter mile of high quality transit. So that would include the Milpitas Transit Center, as well as any transit line with a transit stop with a bus stops or buses running at 15-minute intervals, I believe is the definition for a high quality. Is that correct, Holly?
That is correct, with the exception that I believe it's within a half-mile radius of high quality transit stop.
Oh, so it's a radius. So that includes the light rail. Does that include bus stops as well?
Correct. Yes. So for example, there is a actually Alameda Transit runs a express bus between the Milpitas BART station and the Warm Springs station in Fremont, and that goes right up here past City Hall on Milpitas Boulevard, and that runs, I believe, every 15 minutes. So that's considered a high quality transit corridor. So anything within a half mile of Milpitas Boulevard, for example, would fall into that category.
Okay, so yeah, that because I was just thinking about the BART station, but now that you're mentioning the light rails, the Alameda County Transit, VTA bus stations, and then it's half a mile from that. So that's going to affect a lot of residential neighborhoods. And I've mentioned this before, that I have a concern about the shadow, the overshadowing of when the heights are so high that it creates a shadow effect to the neighbors. So I think that we're going to start having issues on with that in the future. But that's, I guess, when the time comes, because this is a state law now, then I guess we'll have to deal with that. The other question I have is with these new ADUs, does this include reach codes as well, since we just spoke about it?
No, it does not. It basically establishes that, earlier ADU law, existing ADU law establishes really three things. There's a minimum 850 square feet. You can't go above that. You can go less than that, but up to 850 square feet, a 4-foot side setback, and up to, previously it was 16 feet, and they've extended that to 18 feet. And in some cases, it can go up to 25 feet if it's attached to a house. So none of the buildings will be over 2 stories. And the 4-foot setback is to provide some manner of safety, as well as to address a little bit of the shadow issue that you mentioned. But those are the basic parameters of an ADU that can be approved with a building permit, a streamlined process.
Okay, well, that's so even though it's a new dwelling, it doesn't have to have the reach codes. And we're trying to these ADUs, they have kitchens in there, right? I mean, they can or they can't. And so you're saying that they don't have to have their all electric appliances?
Oh, well, this ordinance doesn't address the building code, but maybe the building official might be able to address that. The building department does review building permit applications for an ADU, and any of the building codes would apply to an ADU just as the other buildings. But that's not included in this particular ordinance under the the zoning. Yeah.
But that's with the reach codes. And then lastly, I know just recently we created an ordinance of building heights. And how does that affect our ordinance that we just did a couple of months ago?
So that ordinance limited buildings to, if I recall correctly, in certain areas of the city to 3 stories, and in some cases 2 stories or 2.5 stories. And this ADU ordinance is consistent with that, in that it would not go over 2 stories or the 18 feet, which is well below the minimum building height in most residential districts.
Okay, great. And then just a last comment from all this new adoptions that we will be doing, oversight, that to me, that tells me that we're going to be needing more staff, hiring more staff to do all this other work. So that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. It was really great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Carmen Montano, for the questions and comments. A very good discussion here. We have a motion on the floor to approve number 20 as stated, which is adopting an urgency ordinance. Need a second. We got a second from Councilmember Chua. All in favor, we'll go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
And myself as an aye. Item number 20 has been approved. Thank you very much. Not going too far here with planning. Item number 21. Let's conduct a public hearing and introduce an ordinance amending section 13, special uses of chapter 10 zoning of title 11 of the Milpitas Municipal Code relating to accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and junior accessory dwelling units, JADUs. Back to you, Ned. You're on the agenda.
Thank you. So the regular ordinance is virtually identical to the urgency ordinance. The only difference is in the timeline of when one goes into effect and the other one does. So I believe, and we can confirm with the city attorney, we'll do one. I think we only needed to have one hearing, and then we'll just turn it over to him for the first.
Okay, great. Doing the due diligence here. Yep. Okay, so no need to conduct another public hearing. Let's go to our city attorney, Michael Matalapasi.
Thank you, Mayor. So you've already voted on the urgency ordinance. You'll now be voting on an ordinance. There's an error in the title that'll have to be fixed.
No problem.
The title is it will be once it's fixed. This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Milpitas, amending section 13, special uses of the chapter 10, zoning of title 11 of the Milpitas Municipal Code relating to accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and junior accessory dwelling units, JADUs. And we'll ask you in your motion to correct the title to what was read.
No problem. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you for reading aloud the title. And in my motion to approve item number 21, I will include an amendment to correct the title of the item. That sounds good. All right, that's my motion. Need a second. Councilmember Chua?
Second.
We have a second from Councilmember Chua. Let's go. Is there any comment? I know it's similar as item number 20. Okay, just want to make sure. All right, we got a motion in a second. Let's go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
Thank you. And myself as an aye. The motion is carried. Item number 21 is approved. Thank you again to our planners, Director Thomas, Michael, and Holly. Thank you so much. We see you. All right. Still working, huh, Michael? Okay. All right. Moving on here. Item number 22. Let's receive a staff report on draft water rate study. Direct staff to proceed with community engagement on proposed rates, including identifying a date for the public hearing and mailing a notice of the public hearing for the proposed water rates. And we will go to our interim public works director, Roger Lee, and also our director of finance, Lauren Lai. I know folks have been working on this. So Roger.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Member, members of council. Just a real honor to make this presentation for you this evening and to be your interim director the last few months. So what we are here for is the water rate study, item 22. So next slide, please. So first in this presentation, I'll go over about the background of our water system, just give you some descriptions of what is included in it, go over the rate study itself, the drivers for the increase, and ultimately our recommendation, and the rules that are shadow over this process with Proposition 218, and then ultimately our recommendations. So next slide. All right, so the background. So our potable drinking water system serves over 16,000 customers, and these are accounts. So many customers may be served by one account if you consider like mobile home parks or multifamily homes. So there's more individuals being served than there are accounts themselves. And it also includes our recycled water system. So that service is done through 206 miles of underground pipelines. We've got multiple pumping stations that maintain our pressure, storage reservoirs to make sure that we have adequate supply. And then because we do have some topography and hillsides and Milpitas, some pressure zones that regulate the pressure, on average, we're delivering 11 million gallons of drinking water per day. And this drinking water comes from two sources, the San Francisco Public Utility Commission, SFPUC, and Valley Water. And as a reminder, Council did adopt a master plan for water systems back in August of 2022. And I'll go over some of the recommendations of that. Next slide, please. So out of that master plan process, and if you recall what the plan does, it really looks at the readiness of our water system and its ability to deliver, reliable drinking water today and into the future with Milpitas's growth, and for pressure, fire suppression into the future. These are all things that are included in the master plan, and also, on the readiness side, what's it going to take to make sure the system is reliable. So in the next 5 years, what you see on the screen is what has been identified. The second bullet with the detailed condition assessment that would go in and further prioritize the need at 2.7 million. The top one would be items will be identified and earmarked as 16.5 million to replace, main lines that are reached their useful life, pump stations, water tanks, and the like. And then additionally, we're going to be doing a cross-connection survey. We've got over 1,900 businesses in the city that conduct operations that have the potential to have contamination backflow into the drinking water. So we need to go in and survey that they have the proper cross-connection device to prohibit that, and then it's being properly maintained. So, and these are really the drivers as to why we are talking about rate increases now. So next slide, please. So it's always good to know how our customers are being billed for water currently. A single family home is our largest customer account base. And for the single family home, we have a 5/8 inch meter is what is the most typical. And that's a fixed meter charge. So whether you use water or not, this is the charge that would apply. And then if you do use more water, then that's where the volumetric charge occurs. And a typical Milpitas single-family home uses 1,400 cubic feet, that's HCF, which is one HCF is about 750 gallons of water, and that's every bi-monthly basis. Then the capital surcharge it was put into place back in fiscal year 16 and 17 to help pay for capital improvements, such as what's being recommended in our master plan, and also for debt service. Our water system has no debt, so it goes to capital projects here, and that's based also on volume. The more volume you use, the more capital surcharge that you have. So right now, our residents are paying $143 bi-monthly. So next slide. So in the water rate study, we retained Raftellus, and they're not quite yet. We retained Raftellus to do our water rate study. And in that process, they did a cost of service analysis. And we're really looking at what expenditures we foresee in the next 5 years and making sure that our revenue projections match the expenditures. And towards the end of the presentation, I'll talk about Prop 218 and why that is so important. And so we have with us this evening Joe Collins. He's a senior consultant with Raftellus. And then also joining me, I should have mentioned this in the beginning, is Lauren Lai with the finance department. Her and her staff have been outstanding in helping support this effort over the last few months. And additionally, Harris Siddiqui, principal engineer in our utility engineering public works as well, is on the call tonight. So next slide, please. All right, so getting back to the drivers of the rates that are needed to support our system. On the right, we'll look at the line chart first. I mentioned that we have two water wholesalers that we get water from, SFPUC and Valley Water. We get about 2/3 of our water from SFPUC and the remaining third from Valley Water. And you can see we forecast that we're going to have an on average 9% increase in our wholesale water rates between this coming fiscal year through fiscal year 28. And the rate that we're proposing is a 6.4% average increase year over year until fiscal year 28. It's the line below. I think that's good to show because we're proposing this capital improvement program, which is needed to support the system. We have the overlay of wholesale water rates increasing, and yet we're able to stay under that line at a relatively modest 6.4% increase. Now, all increases are impactful to some folks, and we appreciate that. But it is also important to timely maintain and improve our system to provide that reliable service now instead of trying to catch up later. Now, the slide on the left, the pie chart, these are the drivers to our rate increase. So water purchases there, the half the slice that's orange, that's the increases from SFPUC and Valley Water. That's 50% of our driver. The others are the capital improvement projects identified in the master plan for the 39%. Because our system needs, it is several decades old and we need to make sure it's reliable. That's a driver. I mentioned there's no debt service on the water side, so 0 there. Then city operation and maintenance. I mean, our costs are increasing. We're paying for electricity, to maintain our pressure zones. That's all built into that 12%. So next slide, please. All right, so this stack chart is showing our reserves. We'll start at the top. The bright color is our capital reserves. These are funds that are available to be expended towards our capital improvement projects. So in our current fiscal year, we're sitting on a nice balance. That in part is due to us having that capital surcharge. But as time goes by, you see that amount is steadily decreasing. So what we're doing is we're employing those reserves, applying them towards those capital projects, and that reserve is going down, yet it still has a balance towards the end. Now, the other 3 reserves, they're established based on our fiscal reserve policy. There's targets for what those amounts should be. And for instance, let's see, the capital, I think the capital reserve for water is specified to be, let's see here, 30% of our operation and maintenance budget. Now, these are targets. In water, we're not able to meet our target 100% for the 5 years. And really what we're trying to balance out is to have a rate that is practicable for our customers, is diligent in performing the capital improvements that are necessary, and yet are able to substantially meet our targeted reserves. And we think we've struck a fairly good balance with that in our recommendation this evening. So next slide. Now on this slide, sort of flipping it over, this is on the revenue side. So if you look at that solid horizontal green line, that's the revenue the city is receiving for water rates currently. And so as you can see for fiscal year 23, the city is receiving more money than it is spending on the system. That's partly the reason why we have larger capital reserves right now that are available for improvements. Now, the dashed line represents what our proposed rates, the revenues that they would bring in. And you can see that some years, 26 and 27, our expenses will exceed our revenues. And that is the reason why on the previous slide that the capital reserves are they're going down, because we're depleting those to make up for these shortfalls in those out years, and it balances out well. So next slide. So this is what the rates that are being proposed. We've explained the various charges that hit single family residents, fixed volume and capital. And so you'd seen the 143.02 number in the past, and 6.4% year over year is what is being recommended, and you can see what that dollar amount is bi-monthly for the next 5 years. And this is very similar to what was forecasted when the master plans were adopted back in August. Now, what's not on here is like our recycled water. Recycled water is part of our system. The fixed charges for recycled water is generally going down. We don't own that system, but the volumetric charges are going up for recycled water. Next slide. It's always good to have a comparison. The yellow line is where Milpitas is now on our current rates and how we rank with other agencies providing water in our area. And the green is where we are proposing to be. And then the orange vertical line is the average, and we're maintaining about $12 less than that average. And it's always good to keep in mind that this is just a point in time. You know, all water agencies are, you know, they're typically going through a 5-year analysis of their water rates. And any one of them could be at a point in time where they're considering water rates, you know, imminently or within a few years. You know, and I mentioned earlier, you know, any increase in rates is impactful. You know, in the staff report, we identified the Milpitas Assistance Program is an opportunity for folks, you know, if they qualify to have some assistance on water rates. Next slide, please. All right, so Proposition 218 is it's a 1996 law that really is a cost of service law. Next slide. And so the goal of Prop 218 is that what it costs an agency to provide that service. You should only be charging you know, your fees proportional to the cost, and they're not to exceed those costs. And that there's very prescriptive public noticing that's required if you do plan on changing those fees. And so what the noticing requires is you have a public hearing. And so part of the action this evening is to set a public hearing date. Provide a written notice, so all customers would receive a notice as to what rates are being proposed, why, how to protest, and the public hearing date so that they can be heard. Now, there's about 20,000 parcels in Milpitas, and if the city were to receive more than 50% of those parcels saying no, we don't want an increase, then there wouldn't be one. However, if there's less than a 50% protest, then council would be able to consider all the comments received and could authorize a rate increase. Next slide. So our timeline is tonight is where we are, just considering this process. We're not asking you to authorize rates tonight. That would come on March 7th. That is the proposed hearing date. That would allow for 45 days notice. But because these proposed rates affect, you know, a wide group of customers throughout the city, community outreach is being scheduled for each of those customers, the mobile home parks, single family homes, the businesses. We would dedicate a web page to this. We would avail ourselves of the social media of the city. That would be happening. Put in the dates for our different operating our budgets there for May and June. And if we pass through those requirements and council were to authorize a rate increase in March, then the rate would become effective on July 1st next year. Next slide. So these are our recommendations. And additionally, I think there was this is CEQA exempt. That was also part of the recommendation. And so with that, I'll end this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our interim director of public works, Roger Lee. Thank you very much. And yes, let it be emphasized that tonight's item is just the opening of the conversation and the discussions that need to happen going forward here regarding water in Milpitas, which we take great pride in all across town. Thank you. That's the staff report that's been received. I do want to direct staff a little bit. I think there can be a little more attention to our business customers here in town. A little bit more engagement for our business customers, water customers from the business, from businesses. So if we can ensure that we're hearing from our small businesses and little shopping centers, large commercial shopping centers, those things would be nice. I know we always put Milpitas families first, but also I do want to ensure that our businesses are being engaged throughout the process as their rates will go up as well. I know other utilities, not water or sewer for that matter, but I've seen those rates go up a little more than our residents' rates. And so that's sort of interesting things to see outside of the average household bill. And so that's what I want to add as this item moves forward. If there's any requests from the council in terms of any sort of direction as we move forward as a city with the water rates, please let me know. But let's take public comment. Mr. Montemayor, would you like to comment on the water?
This is one of the greatest topic for the day, I would say. Yeah, if there will be surplus, it's negligible compared to overhead, let's say, the economy. At least we're not afraid of the low of supply and demand, even though, anyway, it's raining now. I think we have a good source of water now. So there's not much problem of the supply. Yeah. Anyway, if there is a problem with pipelines, I mean, ruptures, movement, we don't have earthquake proof pipes, so there's always overhead, there's always expenses. But of course, we the people want not the impending increase is there, so we should not be having the increase. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to continued engagement. Any virtual raised hands for the chamber in the sky? We want to take your public comments. Okay. Again, this is the opening of the item topic as we move forward. I'm sure we'll hear a lot more as we move forward, but let's go ahead and identify a date for the public hearing. Did we target that for tonight, or should we make that decision as we move forward, or is that timeline it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think March 7 is the suggested date.
Okay, all right, that's good for the future council. And everything else is set in place, the notices in the mail. Okay, great work. Okay, that's it for item number 22. I see no further requests from my council. We are not voting on anything related to the water rates or anything, so. Okay, all right. We have a request from Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I truly do appreciate the time. I want the record to reflect that I am not supporting this moving forward. I think that just exploring increasing the water rates opens the door to increasing the water rates. And so I personally will not be supporting. And while we are not voting on this, I want Milpitas residents to be very clear on what's happening right now. Right now, there is a proposal to explore that opens up the door for your water rates to increase. And so I am not for that. I do believe that we need to keep them at where they're at, especially in 2023, as we will face a recession. And while the city is going to explore figuring out how the finances are going to be managed in this building, I do believe that the recession is going to hit the pockets of Milpitians residents the most. And so Milpitas, please make sure you put that calendar date. Clerk or city attorney or city manager, could you please repeat the date of the hearing?
March 7th.
March 7th. And then I also just want to clarify, in order for the rates to not increase, how much percent of parcels need to submit? And will that process be available online for the community to know what to do and how to fill out that form?
Yeah, as I mentioned, it is a 50% of the parcels.
Could you just define what parcels mean for the public who's watching us, please?
Well, yeah, any parcel with a water meter, at least 50% of those would need to, and I believe it's a written protest. The city attorney could correct me on that. By the public hearing date of March 7th.
And I just want to clarify, written protest, is that a letter, or is there going to be like a portal where the community could fill out their information and submit?
Yeah, that's something that could be considered. Yeah, I'm just aware of a written protest being received, but if there's things that could facilitate and make it easier for folks, we would explore that.
I would definitely love to give that recommendation. I think it needs to be simplified. for the community, it would be great if there's just a link on the website with a very easy fill-in app, either spreadsheet or form where the community could just go in there, submit their name, their information, and then somehow, I guess, staff could certify if that address qualifies for the meter and that 50%. I do believe that it's really, really important for our community to understand what is happening tonight and how that is going to affect them. And so I would love to be able to see that and participate myself. And so I think it needs to be also offered in different languages, making sure that our top languages that are used in the city of Milpitas and those languages that are native to our residents here, that they are placed on this portal page, because we want to make sure that people are able to gather that information in their language that they understand, if that's either reading it, writing it, and again, just to make sure that they understand what is happening. And for a purpose of transparency, I would really appreciate that. Again, I am not supporting this. I don't believe we should even be exploring it at this time. If, in fact, I would prefer to bring it back at a later date, not in 2023. But again, that's just my own opinion and reflecting the needs of the Milpitas family that we serve. Thank you very much for your time. And that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Dominguez. This is not the first time we've voted on this item topic. I believe you voted for it previously in terms of the item topic. And so 2019. So you're familiar with it, and we'll make sure we improve the process. Thank you very much. But I do want to get consensus here on the date for the public hearing and the mailing of notice of the public hearing, not less than 45 days prior to the hearing, but the hearing March 6th was what was proposed. And do we have?
Yeah, no, excuse me, March 7th.
March 7th. Thank you. Thank you very much. Teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you. March 7th for the record. Let it reflect the record. The public hearing, March 7th. And we want to get consensus. We'll go to Councilmember Dominguez. I think you wanted to abstain or oppose, or please help us.
Thank you very much for your opinion, Mayor. I have stated the facts that I do not support the direction that has been given to staff. And I want to clarify there is no vote in action, as you have stated. And so I just want the record to reflect that I do not support this moving forward. And I am not in support with the direction that the majority of this council has given staff.
Okay, thank you for the record. We just needed that. Any further objections, opposition? Again, we are just looking for consensus for city staff, which they're requesting. And we want to oblige to their requests. We appreciate our city staff so much. Okay, I think we have consensus for March the 7th. And subsequently, those mailing of notices can occur. Yes, thank you so much. So we took public comment for item number 22. That's it. Moving on, item number 23. Similarly, since we're talking about different pipes 100%, not water, we're going to go over to the sewer side. Receive a staff report on draft sewer rates study. Direct staff to proceed with community engagement on proposed rates, including identifying a date for the public hearing and mailing a notice of the public hearing for the proposed sewer rates. And yes, folks, we're not talking about water anymore. I want to be absolutely clear. We're talking about sewer. And we'll go to our interim public works director, doing a fantastic job, Roger.
Yes, good evening again. Thank you. Yes, this is the other side of the water. Next slide, please. All right, so again, just because we have the familiarity with these slides, it's presented the same way, we'll be able to get through it a little bit quicker, Mayor. So I'll provide a background, some of the drivers of our rate increases, the recommended rates, the projections for our reserves, and again, the law. We'll get through that quicker. It's the same law and ultimately our recommendations. Next slide. Next slide. All right, so on the sewer side, so we have a collection system, and it all of our residents, multifamily businesses, they discharge into this system. It gravities to two lift stations in the city, and there's our main lift station. That is the name of it. And that lift station then pressurizes the water and sends it to the regional water facility in San Jose for treatment. That where it's treated, it is either after treatment it's discharged to the bay, or it returns as recycled water. We serve approximately 15,000 plus customer accounts in the city, 175 miles of pipeline, the two pump stations that I mentioned. 6 to 7 million gallons a day. Now that's less than the 11 million gallons of drinking water that is consumed. A lot of, and the difference is because we're using the water for our outdoor irrigation as well. So the cost of our system is really, it needs to be treated. It goes to the regional water facility. The city has a master agreement with the regional water facility, and it's really two types of cost. We have the treatment cost itself, which is based on the amount of discharge that we send to the regional water facility. And then because we have a certain capacity at the treatment plant, like us, they have to maintain their system, improve their system, and there's a cost to that. And then by percentage, Milpitas pays our fair share for that cost for the capital improvements of the treatment plant. And similar to water, we had the master plan that was adopted back in August, and in there we had priority capital improvement projects that came out of that process. Next slide. So these are the projects that came out of it. There's a few more moving parts on the sewer side in terms of what needs to be done, because we have some critical infrastructure that needs to occur, and it's really that top line on Force Main A. And I have some slides later that are dedicated just to it. Force Main A, it's called Force because it's under pressure. It's from that main lift station, and that we've got two lines that leave that lift station that send the water to the regional water facility. One of those lines, Force Main A, needs to be replaced, and I'll talk in more detail about that. Similar to water, we would be doing a detailed condition assessment of the facilities. That's going to queue up for various pipeline replacements and rehabilitations. That's the second bullet. And then a big portion of capital improvements is that cost to the regional water facility over the next 5 years. That's at $30 million. Next slide. So how customers in Milpitas are charged for their sewer. We've got our residential components here for single family, multifamily, and mobile home. And it's bi-monthly. And you'll notice that there's an asterisk there by mobile homes, because mobile homes have been subsidized in Milpitas. Their rate has been lowered. Subsidy has been from late fees and penalties within the sewer account since 2019. And I have some slides dedicated to mobile homes and what we're recommending different for them going forward. Next slide. So similar to water, we retained Raftellus to do a rate study and the cost of service, and you get into detail of what our costs are and will be for the next 5 years, and what revenues are necessary, so that we have a clear nexus between what we're proposing in rates and what our charges are going to be in the future. Next slide. So these are the drivers. That first slide where I talked about Force Main A, that's why you've got such a large slice there. You can see that we have 62% of what we're proposing as an increase is due to the improvements we need to do in the next 5 years. And that's critical infrastructure. I'll talk about it more in detail. And to make that improvement, we are recommending a bond be sold to generate revenue to pay for that improvement. That debt service is 8%. That's the gray slice. Our contribution for the regional water facilities capital improvements and their O&M cost is a 16%. And similarly, we have increase in costs for our operation and maintenance. Our electrical costs is the remaining slice at 14%. These are the drivers of why we're asking for a rate increase. Next slide. We've got this stack chart again. Fortunately, we have a sizable amount of capital reserves right now. That's the large, bright colored vertical stack. But you can see similarly that it is decreasing as the years go by, because we're using it to pay for substantially for these improvements that are needed. Now, on the sewer side, we also have a $20 million bond that will come into play around fiscal year 25. So that too is being expended to pay for these improvements. So that when we get done, our capital reserves will largely be depleted by the end of this next 5 years. But I'll go back to that balance that we're trying to strike where, you know, we want to keep rates as low. We know that they're impactful. And we want to use our reserves as much as we can. But we do have the financial reserve policies I mentioned before. In sewer, we are able to meet our targets at 100% funding for all of them through fiscal year FY28. So that's a good thing, and get our improvements done and have rates reasonably low for the increase. Next slide. So here's our revenues again. The green solid line is where we are now. And you can see, within just a few years, we would have challenges in meeting our obligations to the treatment plant for operation maintenance and capital improvements if there is not a rate increase. The green dashed line is what we're proposing. Again, we have years where we have expenditures exceeding our revenues. And that's being paid for from the capital reserves that we have from the previous slide. And that's why they're going down. But it balances out at the end, and that's the goal of the cost of service analysis. Next slide. All right, so I'll talk about Force Main A and what we're recommending. And this is something that was discussed during the master plan process as well. So this is not new. So we're recommending the top row of construction starting in fiscal year FY26. That means design would be starting next year. There's a $20 million bond that I mentioned. It would be amortized for up to 30 years. And this is a critical asset. You've got two force mains leaving the main lift station. Force main, they're both 30-inch lines. Force main A is a 50-year-old line. The useful life of these lines are 40 to 50 years. What's sort of compounding the criticality of this line is it's going under Coyote Creek. It's going under the sludge drying beds at the regional water facility. So it's not in a very good environment. And if we were to have a failure, it's an environmentally sensitive area on top of that. So it is important, and you don't want to get to a point to where you can't use it and you're only using one force main, because if something were to happen to that, then there'd be some very serious problems. So that causes, on average, all customer groups averaged about a 4% rate increase for sewer for the next 5 years. And the bi-monthly amount of that in the fiscal years is what you see, $430 in fiscal year 24 on up to fiscal year 28. Now, alternatively, if there's a scenario to where you delay the construction of Force Main A and you push it out to fiscal year 28, 29, and you don't issue a bond, so you pay for it all with revenues received from ratepayers up front, you'd have to have a 6% rate increase so that you could build up the reserves larger between now and fiscal year 28, 29, so that you could build it then. We're not recommending that just because of the critical nature of getting that project done sooner than not. Next slide. And so all the rates that you see going forward are based on that recommendation. So the rates now, you saw this before, fiscal year 23 current rates where we are. And you can see single family 3.9% on average, multifamily 3.8%. And mobile homes, I'll talk about that because they are a special case. We are recommending a 7.9% increase on mobile homes year over year through fiscal year 28. Now, businesses are different than residents because we pay based on how the regional water facility charges us. And businesses have different strengths of waste. Some of them have high amounts of nitrogen, ammonia, biological oxygen demand. And so they're billed differently. And the rates that are going to impact businesses, some of them will see a decrease. Some are going to see a rather substantial increase in the next couple fiscal years. And again, it's just because that's the cost the city has to bear based on their waste stream. After that, it will level off at the 4% rate for the out years. So let's talk about mobile homes. Next slide. So the history of mobile homes, as I mentioned, the subsidy began back in 2019. The last 5-year rate study was completed. And had mobile homes been paying their fair share at that time, they would have experienced a 33% increase. That's the row, towards the top there. And then it would have leveled off. And my suspicion is that was just too much. That's a large hit for customers. And so alternatively, what happened is they were subsidized, and the rate increases were 8, 5, 8, 7, and 5. That's what occurred back in 2019. Now, unfortunately, that rate never got mobile homes up to where they needed to be, because how the city is built, again, from the regional water facility, mobile homes are more similarly priced to multifamily homes. And that's why that last row, I have the multifamily price. And at the end there, where we are now, fiscal year 23, multifamilies being charged 95. Mobile homes need to be close to 95, but they're not. But if we were to try to write that next year, the increase in that bottom bullet would be almost 25%, and that's a large increase. So we have a recommendation to get them more similar parity and do it over time. Next slide, please. So what's being recommended is option 1 up above, where we have a level increase for 5 years. You've seen the 7.9%. So we have the current rate at 78.28, recommending this level increase going across, and ultimately they get up to 114.22. Now that's a very similar rate to what multifamily is right now. And so what will happen after fiscal year 28, a subsidy for mobile homes would no longer be needed. They would be being charged what the city is being charged. And again, that subsidy is coming from late fees and penalties within the utility now. Now, alternatively, we could do a gradual increase. So that's the bottom table. And see where we have 7% as opposed to 7.9. And then it just gradually builds up. But because it starts low, it has to finish high because it needs to get to the same place at the end of 5 years. We're not recommending that. We think it's better for customers to be able to manage their finances, knowing it's going to be that much of an increase year over year for 5 years. Next slide. I mentioned that businesses are treated differently than residential based on how we are charged. What we did is we just put together just a sampling of some businesses, because as you had mentioned, Mayor, specific outreach needs to be done to this group so that they really understand why. Schools and colleges, they're going to have an increase, 15.9%. Some are going down, as you see here. Others are going up. But I think that outreach is going to be really important, so it's being understood. And again, it's just cost of service, and this is driven by Proposition 218. Next slide. So again, we're comparing, where we are now at the yellow, where we need to be with blue, how we're compared to the average there on the orange vertical line. And the same program, the Milpitas Assistance Program, is available for those that have hardship and that can qualify. It is challenging when they don't have a meter dedicated to their account, and staff is looking at how that can be resolved. Next slide. The Prop 218 process, next slide. I won't go over that again. Everything still applies. The way in which the protest is received is the same. And so we're recommending that we have the same public hearing date like tonight all together for that one evening. Same timeline as we discussed before. Next slide. Okay, so this is the recommendation, just with the amendment that this is also a CEQA exempt project. So thank you very much. We'll take your questions.
Thank you very much, Roger, for the presentation. Certainly a critical time in our city's sewer system history, and very important decisions will have to be made in terms of our sewer infrastructure here in the short term. So quite a time to be a leader in City Hall to really determine or discover a way to ensure our sewer system is at the level of excellence that is required. I appreciate the staff report. It has been received. I think going forward, my 2 cents here tonight is there's going to have to be larger discussion on subsidizing our mobile home customers. This town's got a little bit of stubbornness in it, and it's a good stubbornness. And supporting the folks over at the mobile parks is something that we've carried on council after council after council after council after council after council. So the next council will have to make a decision if they want to carry on some of the goodwill and stubbornness, or to divert with the communities over at the mobile park. But that should be an enjoyable discussion going forward. I will look to staff to proceed with the community engagement and also the date for the public hearing. For the record, let it reflect, I think, March 7th. Again, it's sort of a concurrent process here with water and sewer. So March 7th, if anybody cares to write that down. And subsequently the notice thereafter. So I know there's a lot more comments to come with our sewer. Let's go public comment. Public comment. Come on up, Mr. Montemir.
Maybe this is tougher topic than the previous one, but yeah, they're related. The in and out, you have to in a clean water for your body, and out not to destruct. So in other words, still the overhead expenses. I understand. I'm in between directorly and the finance. I'm in between. I understand both sides. So it's really hard. You cannot yet you may not do the increase, but you have to lay off some workers. Then it's not good. Also, we need workers. So benefits, all those. The parts now are getting expensive. The lifespan of the pipes. How could you not pollute if you don't clean that sewer? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Seeing no further requests for public comment here at the chamber, let's go to the virtual chamber. Folks on Zoom, if you'd like to comment on sewer. And now would be the time. I see no virtual raised hands. That's it with the comments for item number 23. I'll go to my colleagues here for any requests related to the sewer. Okay, we'll go to Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Same thing. I know it's just direction to staff, just making sure that there is the opportunity for our community to have access to what is happening in different languages, and that it's accessible on the website. I think it's also really important for us to include it in the newsletter and work. I think the future council in advance, as they are going to have to work through this extreme challenge, especially because this area holds a lot of the most vulnerable, which includes our seniors. And so we know that when you increase the water and the sewer rates at the exact same time, that could be detrimental for families who are already on a fixed income. So I definitely just wanted to share my remarks, and thank you for your time in order for the record to reflect that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further requests here for giving direction and comments, feedback? It's been fantastic. Okay, there you have it. That's item 23. We did take public comment. Thank you, Roger. How's that sound? Oh, that's good, huh? Yeah, direction March 7th. Yeah. Good, huh?
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.
Yeah, my
All
pleasure.
right.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. Good luck to you. The whole process of timeline here. A lot of work. Thank you. All right. Item number 24. Let's adopt the resolution appointing Brian Stelling as interim fire chief. And I'm happy to introduce, folks, our interim human resources director and friend of the city of Milpitas, always, Liz Brown.
Well, good evening, Mayor, City Council. It is very nice to see each and every one of you tonight, and it's an honor to be back. Tonight, I'm before you to recommend to adopt a resolution appointing Brian Stelling as interim fire chief in accordance with California Government Code Section 7522.56 and 21221H, and authorize the city manager to execute an employment agreement with Brian Stelling. By approving this request, the city will have an interim fire chief effective January 1, 2023. A recruitment will begin by January 1, 2023, and we expect to have the position filled by the end of March of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz, our Director of HR. Here and now, we'll go to the public here for public comment. Mr. Montemayor, would you like to make a comment here on the last agenda item of the evening, sir, on your birthday week?
I think we should approve this.
Yeah. We agree. Absolutely. Okay. Any comments from the virtual chamber in the sky? I see the names. Thanks for being with us here tonight. It's not too late, huh? We're moving along pretty well. All thanks to city staff. It's tremendous, the work of city staff. Okay, that's it with public comment for item number 24. I want to make a motion to adopt the resolution approving item number 24. That's the motion. Need a second. We got a second from Councilmember Chua. Before we go to the vote, one last opportunity for any staff or, city council members to comment. I just really quickly want to say, Chief Sherrard did a fine job. He's off to a different sunset. And what I can say about Brian Stelling is a tremendous public servant that's been with our city for a very long time. And I think you couldn't ask for a better interim here and now than Brian. Is just a great person. And I know that the folks over at the fire department will be pleased and satisfied in the interim, obviously. And looking forward to meeting the next chief as next calendar year as a citizen and lifelong member of this community. I look forward to the exciting opportunity and time to meet the next chief. So certainly this is a step in the process. But Brian Stelling, hey, congratulations on being interim here at this point, and you're going to do great. And we'll go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Well, I just want to say congratulations to Mr. Stelling and welcome back to Ms. Brown. Yes,
Yeah, this is a fun item. Yes. No, so here he is.
There he is.
Assistant Chief, before you become interim chief, would you like to comment and say hi to the Milpitas family?
No, Mayor and Council, thank you for having me. Again, I've been with the city for 29 years, 29 enjoyable years, starting out as a firefighter and moving up through the ranks. And I'm very proud to represent our department and the city and the community for the next 4 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there will be tons of great public service and good times these next several months here. I'm very happy. We'll go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carmen Montano.
Aye.
And myself as an aye. The motion is carried. Item number 24 has been approved. Thank you very much, Interim Fire Chief Brian Stelling. And Liz Brown, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's it for tonight's agenda. Great work by city staff to get us through all these public hearings. Our city clerk, city attorney, city manager, and all my colleagues. We had a really great, efficient meeting. Thank you to our residents, community members, Milpitas family for being here tonight. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks. I encourage all city staff, every single person, man, woman, and child, to come on out in 2 weeks to meet your new mayor and council members. This meeting is adjourned.